Hello, my name is Hana, and this is my story. So I grew up in a Christian household. My parents took us kids to church up until I was about the age of 10. Then my grandmother passed away from breast cancer, and I don't recall going to church much after then. I think that was a bit of a turning point for my mum especially. Was born and bred in Palmerston North. I did my Bachelor of Science, majoring in psychology. I finished my bachelor's degree and then started my master's degree. Halfway through my master's degree, I found out that my mother had breast cancer. So we have a strong family history of breast cancer in our family. After my mum was diagnosed with cancer, I fell into quite a hole. I felt quite angry at the world. I felt quite hopeless. And I turned to drugs as a way of coping. It was when I turned to drugs, that's when I met my son's father. We were together probably about 6 months, and then he went to prison for 6 months. Then he got out and he moved in with me. Not long after he got out, I fell pregnant. So I got clean off drugs. Then he remained in his addiction, which was really difficult. But I chose my baby over. I put my baby first and wanted the best outcome for him. My son was born, and then the relationship was volatile at best. When my son was about 8 weeks old, we got custody of his 2 daughters from a previous relationship. They got uplifted by the police from their mum's care, and so they came to live with us. They were 2 and 6 at the time, so I was thrown into motherhood. I went from having no kids to having 3 kids in the space of about 8 weeks. My son's father, while he wasn't physically abusive, he was very emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive. And once again, I turned back into drugs to cope. He would leave the house and leave me with the children with no money, no car, and would leave us for days, if not weeks at a time. He'd pop back every now and then to drop me off drugs and then would disappear again. So this went on for about 3.5 years, 4 years. Then I decided, actually, enough's enough. I don't want this life for myself, and I certainly don't want this life for my children. So I left. And all of the kids came with me. I was still in active addiction at that time. And then COVID hit. So I used that as a chance to get myself clean for my babies. So I left Palmerston North and came up here and stayed with my mum and dad. Got clean. Went back to Palmerston North after lockdown, determined to stay clean. I got a job and everything was going well. And then got into another relationship, which was physically violent. He beat me up. He manipulated me. He controlled me. It was during that relationship that I ended up giving the girls back to their mum, giving them back to her and putting them back in her care. She'd made a lot of progress, and it was really taking a toll on me emotionally. So I gave the girls back to their mum, and I was in this toxic relationship. There was one instance which was, well, especially bad, where he actually put me in hospital. He came home drunk one night and my son was in bed, and I was doing arts and crafts at the table, and he came home and just let loose on me. No reason, just he was obviously not in a good place and took it out on me. He pinned me in between the wall and the table and broke 3 dining room chairs over me. He broke my arm, dislocated fingers, battered and bruised. I ended up being able to escape when I convinced him finally, after about half an hour of torture, that I needed to check on my son. I ran out the door and he knew that I was running, so he turned around and chased me. And I only just made it to the neighbours, screaming, covered in blood. And he was right behind me. He nearly got me, but luckily they answered the door in time. So he left, the police were called. I was taken to hospital in an ambulance. I never really recovered from that, I suppose, because I went back into active addiction. There were times quite often, I knew that I didn't want to use drugs, but there was so much unhealed trauma that I hadn't dealt with, that was the easiest way to cope. I ended up trying to get clean several times, and I did for periods, but there was always, they were always there, and because I was in that environment, the only people I knew or associated with were people who were using drugs, so it was really hard to stay clean when I was surrounded by it. And that's how I met Jake. We would use drugs together. From then on, we spent more and more time together. And it blossomed into what it is. Well, not what it is now, but it blossomed into something more. Then we'd been together about 6 months and he went to jail. So I was once again left on my own in addiction. I don't like to glamorise it, but I was a functioning addict. I held down a job. I was very embarrassed about my addiction. It was a big secret. I didn't like anyone knowing, apart from those who I used drugs with. I hid it from my family. I hid it from my colleagues. It got to the point where enough was enough. I was at the end of my tether. Jake was in jail. I was just treading water, barely hanging on by a thread. And I made the decision to move up here to Hamilton and move in with Mum and Dad. I spoke to Jake on the phone daily. He said, "Can I come?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but it's going to be very different to the life that we've been living. I don't want drugs to be a part of my life anymore. I don't want crime to be a part of my life anymore. I don't want antisocial behaviour. I want to turn my life around and get clean and do it for the rest of my life. I don't want to live this life anymore." After I'd been up here for about a month, Jake got out of jail. I went down and picked him up. We came back here, and not long after I fell pregnant again. So, yeah. But having him by my side made it a lot easier, knowing that he was also leaving a lot behind. So, yeah, we were up here for probably, 4 or 5 months. And Jake came to me one day and said, "How would you feel about going to church?" And I thought, I was like, "Oh, well, I'm open to it." We both felt like there was something missing in our lives, that there was a missing link, I suppose. We felt like there was something there that was calling us, but we couldn't put our finger on. We knew that we were destined for something greater, but we didn't really know what what that void was and what was missing in our lives. You know, we were clean, we were living with mum and dad, we had everything that we wanted, we were expecting a baby together. But yeah, there was just something that was missing and we couldn't put our finger on it. And he came and he said, how do you feel about going to church? And I was like, well, I suppose, but I think if I step into a church, I'm going to burst into flames. And he goes, well, it's worth a try. So I said, well, yeah, you lead the way. And lead the way he did. He led us to Elim. It was the first, he looked online at contemporary churches, and Elim was the first one that popped up. That next Sunday, we attended our first service. We had strict rules going into it, that we had to sit at the back. Don't talk to anyone, don't make eye contact with anyone. He was like, don't tell anyone about what, our past or anything, we'll just look the part, act the part, slink in and slink out. So little did we know that Matt Foster, the wonderful Matt Foster, made a beeline for us after the service and approached Jake, and I sort of came out with the kids, and then Michelle sort of joined in, and we sort of were having this conversation. I thought, I don't know what it was, that I was standing there and listening to Jake, and we're from Palmerston North, and we've just moved up here, and I was like, actually, no. So Matt asked us, so what's your story? And Jake looked at me and was like, don't you say anything. And I don't know what it was, but I felt comfortable enough just to actually be honest. And I thought, if this is who we are, we've got a story, we've got history, we've got trauma, and this is part of who we are. And if these people can't accept us for who we are, then this is not the place for us. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be someone that I'm not and act like I've got my life together and that I don't have all of this baggage, I suppose, and all of these secrets and all of this embarrassment and all of this shame and guilt. So I just came out and said, yeah, well, look, we're from prison, we're from drugs, we're from crime, and this is us, and we've moved up here for a better life, and we thought that we would try church because we feel like something's missing and we think it might be the Lord. And Michelle, it was like water off a duck's back. She just looked at me and she goes, oh, good. And Jake was making eyes at me like, what are you doing? Shush, just shut your mouth, just stop talking. And Michelle just goes, oh, all good. We've all got a past. And I was like, what? Hey, you. And it was refreshing. And because I was highly expecting just to have this being judged and have it throw back at my face and just, obviously people don't outwardly go, oh my goodness, you don't belong here, but you get that vibe. And I didn't get that vibe at all from Matt and Michelle. And then they called Pastor Poro and Pastor Ants over and, look, and introduced us, and I was like, oh my goodness, and they just wrapped us in love and made us feel really welcome. And it was like, what is happening here? It was so not what we expected, but it was everything that we needed. So yeah, we've been attending Elim now for a little over a year, about 14 months. So we had our baby, and just after I had baby, I actually hemorrhaged and lost about 3 litres of blood. So I was very close to dying. They rushed me into theatre, emergency surgery. They were really worried. They couldn't stop the bleeding. And Mum and Jake were there. My dad was called in, brought my son in. they were sort of thought, this is it. Say your goodbyes, sort of. But Mum and Jake were holding our baby girl and praying like crazy, praying and praying and praying. Please don't let this be it. We've got so much more to give, Please don't take her away from us. And the Lord came through. And so baby was born on Friday, and Sunday I was at church. I felt great. I felt amazing, actually. I felt truly blessed. So back to during my pregnancy, at my 7-week scan, everything was all good. But at my 12-week scan, the sonographer mentioned that I had a cyst on one of my ovaries that wasn't there at my 7-week scan. So had baby, carried on life as usual. Well, not as usual with a newborn. So, the days turned into weeks, turned into months. And Mum actually said to me, have you got that cyst looked at? I totally forgot about it. Booked another ultrasound. Went in, had that ultrasound done, and the cyst had turned into more of what looked like a tumour. It had multiplied, split into two, and it looked really ugly. And I ended up having to go and have a specialist appointment up there. At what point the specialist indicated that, yes, it looked like cancer, ovarian cancer. And they recommended me getting both of my ovaries out. I prayed into it. Jake and I both prayed into it. And I made the decision that I didn't want to get both my ovaries out. I just wanted to have that one ovary and that tumour removed, and hold on to the ovary, because it would have put me into early menopause, and I wouldn't have been able to have any more children. 5 days before the surgery, my mum and me and my sister-in-law attended Replenish conference, women's conference at church. And I had two wonderful women there lay hands on me. There was this beautiful soaking part of the conference where you could just go and lay all of your burdens down at the foot of the cross. And so me and my mum, we knelt at the base of the cross and cried and cried and cried and cried. And we sat there for about 20 minutes praying and just handing everything over to the Lord. And then after that, I had two wonderful women lay hands on me and pray for me. And basically say, don't worry about what the doctors say. Don't worry about any of this, because the Lord's got you. And that He did. He really did. I left Replenish feeling a lot emotionally drained, because I'd been crying all afternoon. But I felt lighter. I felt different. And yes, so went in that following week and had my surgery. They removed the ovary, and they also did a biopsy of the omentum in order to be able to stage the cancer. And after the surgery, I came out of surgery, and the surgeon came to my bedside and said, I don't know what's going on with this grading system we've got, but it doesn't seem very reliable at times. What we pulled out of you looked nothing like what it did on the ultrasound. And to be honest, it doesn't look sinister at all. And I looked at him like, what do you mean? What does this mean? Like, so you're saying it doesn't look cancerous? And he said, it doesn't. It doesn't look like what it did on the ultrasound. So I left there, just me and Mum on the ride home from the hospital were just like, imagine if this is actually, it was all just it's just gone. Didn't get my hopes up, but Mum said to me, she said, I think the Lord might have done a thing. I think he might have done a thing. And so, yeah, just yesterday I got the other results from the ovary, the tumour, and from the biopsy, and they both came back negative for cancer. So, yeah, my mouth just was on the floor. It was, yeah, it's unbelievable. You hear about these miracles happening, but you sort of think, oh well, there could be other reasons for it, and you sort of there's always, I don't know, that's you hear of these miracles happening, but you almost part of you doesn't want to believe it until it happens to you, and it's like you can't explain. There's no explaining it. Like you cannot tell me that 1 minute I've got cancer and then I get prayed for. And never mind you, we prayed hard out. We had a whole we had a whole prayer team behind us. You know, everyone from church was praying. We were praying. Family was praying. But then all of a sudden, I don't have cancer. There's no explaining that other than the Lord. The Lord did a thing. He did a mighty thing. And he's got bigger plans for me. And obviously it's not my time to return to his kingdom yet, because I've got more to do on earth. So yeah, I feel incredibly blessed. And in fact, it doesn't even do it justice. I don't even have the words to explain how grateful I am to have the Lord in my life now. And I'm so grateful for Jake leading us back to the Lord. I don't know what my life would look like without the Lord in it now. And not only that, we've gained this beautiful church family, people who love us for us, who don't judge us for our pasts, who don't discriminate, who don't look down on us, but they just wrap us in love, nothing but love and acceptance. And that's beautiful. It's something that we've never really experienced before. So, yeah, my name's Hana, and that was my story.